All right, Elif, thank you so much for this beautiful performance. I need to get it together a little bit. It was so touching. Well, hello everyone. Today I'm gonna share a little bit about animal liberation through self-liberation. Yeah, and I'm happy to be able to share this here with you all, with all the fellow vegans, fellow activists. It's very nice to be here together today. So for those who don't know me, my name is Priya. And yeah, I wanted actually starting introducing myself by introducing myself as a vegan, because I feel that's really my core. When I became a vegan in 2017, I think I really found myself. I became an animal rights activist in 2020. I've been doing street outreach, pressure campaigning against foie gras in the front of restaurants. And also, I'm not holding back on my Instagram account and also not in my social life. Every opportunity I get, I'll take to explain what happens to animals and to hold people accountable in a sense. So also, sorry, Floris, not taking your advice. I also took the Liberation Pledge, so I really need to speak up now. Next to that, I've been working as a healthcare psychologist for actually 13 years already. I've also had my own practice as a psychologist, like general mental health care. And I decided in 2023 to make a career switch to actually make my life more in service of the animals more directly. So I started a study to become a plant-based chef here in Amsterdam. I didn't finish that because it was not really plant-based, but that's a whole nother topic. But in the meanwhile, I work in vegan kitchens now, and I'm also thinking about starting something for myself. And in the meanwhile, while I was observing like fellow activists and see how hard it can be myself to be an activist in a world that's mostly non-vegan, unfortunately, I decided to open up my practice again as a psychologist to support people, who need that. So that's who I am. And today, I want to share some perspectives that I have and insights on how we can contribute to animal liberation, in which we are all contributing in a way by doing things we can do in a very nice way, the talents we have, the gifts we have. But I also think, observing from my work as a psychologist, that there are some things that we can do with ourselves, apart from the collective or like the systems, maybe, that we can do directly to, I believe, help animal liberation. All right, so as we all might know, is that becoming a vegan or becoming an activist is life-altering. There's, for me at least, a life before I was a vegan and a life now after becoming a vegan. And it's actually like an awakening to oppression and injustice done to non-human animals. So we all recognize and relate in a way to the victims through maybe our own experiences, maybe trauma. I myself, I have trauma with oppression and abuse, so that's I think why I can relate to animals in a direct way, because I can totally feel what they feel. So also empathy. And once you see what you've seen, you cannot unsee anymore, and you need to take action. So, yeah. And with consciousness, so the more you know, the more responsibility you have. So that's, I believe, also a reason probably why people try to avoid consciousness, so they don't have to take responsibility. But when you do, we need to. And in the end, it's worth it, I believe. So I want to talk a little bit more about oppression. I was looking up the definition of oppression when I was preparing this presentation, and I could literally only find definitions that only concerned humans. So I decided to pick one from Google instead of Oxford or Cambridge Dictionary, which I feel fits the best. So it's prolonged cruel or unjust treatment or exercise of authority, the state of being subject to oppressive treatment and mental pressure or distress. And why I feel it's important to talk about oppression in this presentation for you is because next to that there's systematic systematic oppression, we are also oppressed individually. So in some way we are oppressed, and also in some way we oppress ourselves because that's how we are brought up. When we cry, we get to people tell us that we cannot cry, we cannot do stuff, or we cannot feel the things we feel, or it's not appropriate, or whatever. And in that way, we learn to oppress ourselves. So it's oppression of emotions, but sometimes it's also oppression of memory. So if we had to deal with some kind of trauma or things that have been difficult for us, we might have learned to oppress that too, to actually deal with it and to continue with life in a way. And also obviously our voice. I mean, I'm sure that everyone here in this room has been quiet down because they were vegan and they were trying to talk about it, and then they were like silenced in a way. But also our own power. And I feel as vegans, we don't get the credits that we actually deserve for taking all the responsibility that we do. And maybe we are also afraid of stepping into this power ourselves because we are oppressed. And I feel, and that's the reason why I bring this up in this space, is because there's an interconnectedness between what's happening to animals and how we treat ourselves in a way. And I feel like we can change ourselves and then add to a whole and then in that way change the whole. So yeah, as I said, self-liberation is animal liberation. And I wanted to start by first saying that there are like many ways leading to Rome, and I feel we need all the ways. So we need the direct action, we need the pressure campaigning, we need the how you say strategic approach. We need everything. So I'm just here to give you one perspective that can help us move out of the dynamics in a whole of oppression that is present on this planet. And important with this is that there's we have a circle of influence. So most of us do activism that targets the systemic oppression, and that's great because I think that's definitely where there's change needed. But there's also we can also change individually or make changes individually, and that's also where most of our influence is. So the same rights we wish for animals should also apply to ourselves too. We should also be able to live freely and have autonomy and everything that we wish for the animals. And this is just like a very short presentation because I can speak about this for a couple of hours. So this is just a short like pinpoint to some of the things that we can do to exit victimhood ourselves, because when we have experienced things in which we were a victim too, it can still be lingering in our presence and in how we interact with others and also in our activism, or it can withhold us from doing activism. So we can heal from that. We can heal from that. We can embody more power, and we can learn to carry more responsibility. This we can do by certain modalities like nervous system work. Maybe someone ever has heard of it. And definitely emotion regulation. And I think that's a very important one. Having to deal with such heavy topics and the suffering, all the suffering that we know about, it's very important that we know how to regulate our own emotions and to stay stable in a world like this. This is just like a very short like pinpoint because it's such a big topic. It's difficult to do it in 10 minutes. But what I can say is that it's important for us to embody and take this place towards building the world that we want to see as vegans, like a vegan world where oppression is not here, where justice is the most important thing and equality. And I feel because the status quo is not like this, we can be persuaded sometimes into living like, actually as vegans we moved out of there, but because the status quo is still there, we can sometimes go back to that. And I feel it's up to us to change the standards, and I believe we can. Okay, so that was very short, but yeah, I think veganism and also doing activism is the bare minimum. But I also want to acknowledge that this is not something that's easy. So I'm saying this now as like, oh, we should do that. But I also experience a lot of pain and sometimes also depression from what I encounter in the world and how to deal with that. So keep in mind, it's not easy for none of us. But I do believe, and that's a little positive note, that it's totally worth it. So we need to keep going. Also, I did some in-depth interviews with 11 activists, some long-term, some new, from different countries, but also from different approaches. And I actually came to one thing that was very important for doing sustainable activism, and that is community. So I think it's great that you guys organize RAF, and that we have NART, and we have other summits and evaluation gatherings where we can gather and support each other and to make new plans and to get inspired by each other. And yeah, also to be critical of each other, but in a respectful way, of course. But community was the most important thing that actually maybe all the activists mentioned. And what I also advise myself when people ask me like, okay, so my son is feeling like this, so what should I do? And I always tell them, let them, connect to people that think the same, that have the same values and think that's important, and yeah, feel the support that's here too. And also, I wanted to add that like having self-care, and I don't mean necessarily go to the sauna or having a mask every week or going to the bed, but self-care in the form of taking yourself very serious. I feel because we as vegans maybe not get the credits that we deserve, we also tone down and not take ourselves too serious, while actually what we do is super important and super brave and super courageous. So take yourself seriously and also have healthy boundaries towards other people, but also towards yourself. So don't go crossing your own boundaries, because that's not sustainable either. And that's also actually kind of a violation, that what we don't wish for animals, we actually do to ourselves. And definitely compassion to others and self. And with others, I also mean non-vegans, which is very challenging if I can say that from my own experience. But it's important to be compassionate towards yourself, towards the animals, and towards people in general. And yeah, I think actually this is mentioned before about being confident. Like, yeah, if you're gonna do this, be confident about it and be the person that the animal needs you to be. That's very important. Yeah, that's actually it. Yeah, I have a website, in which you can read more about what I do in my practice. If you ever need support, you can always contact me. And also my cooking adventures you can find on Instagram. So very happy to connect with you all. And yeah, thank you all for listening. Regarding the questions.
I have a question.
Okay, can I say something? I also don't mind personal questions, so go ahead.
So, thanks a lot for this talk. Regarding the links, you will also receive them by email, so don't worry. I think this talk is extremely relevant because I think a lot of people have this awakening and want to become an advocate for life, but in practice I think many of us recognize that we see a lot of people come and go after a few years. So there was a question.
Yeah, so it's not much of a question, but I would like to hear you say a little bit about taking a break from, not from veganism, but from the prospect that we live in a non-vegan world. Like taking a break from, I don't know, this immense weight that you feel on your shoulder sometimes, maybe as an animal rights activist, maybe as a vegan. Like, should we feel safe in taking these breaks? Should we be okay with it? Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a very beautiful question because I feel that's something I struggle with myself as well. Because if you see, you want to take the responsibility, but sometimes taking responsibility is obviously also listening to your own boundaries. And I would say that it's kind of like a balance. I feel as a vegan, you're like so wide open to everything. And I feel that sometimes we can actually get inspired by non-vegans by something, shutting it a little bit. Not too much, but a little bit. I think that's a balance. I think it's a balance to also give yourself a break from knowing what you know in a way, but also stay active and focused. Yeah.
And just to continue with what you're saying is a good point.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you actually benefit the animals by taking a break. That's how I look at it personally as well.
Yeah.
Taking breaks shouldn't be looked down upon.
For sure.
Sometimes we get overwhelmed with what we see and being active. That taking a break is good for yourself, but the animals would actually appreciate that because then you're going to come back and be more active as opposed to stopping altogether.
Exactly.
And leaving the movement.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. Yeah, I truly feel that it's if it's starting to become violent to yourself, then it's passing the goal, right? So yeah, I think maybe that should be the I'll just come with you. There's a question here.
What did you mean by personal boundaries exactly? Like, what example?
Well, for instance, like when you feel like you want to take a break, or yesterday I was telling on my work that I'm a vegan, and someone said ew. yeah. So stuff like this, being grounded in who you are, and not toning down on that in a way, and expressing yourself when you need to, and cutting down when you need to. Also in conversation with other people. Yeah. Kiana?
Yeah, so you briefly touched upon this earlier about like the generation pledge. I'm very curious to hear your experience on that. For me, like I with non-vegans, like they're my target. They're like and I want to take all the occasions I have to speak up for the animals. I will take them. So I do see it as a very good chance in that regard. But when I did join this, for example, with your colleagues, there's no way out. You're often the only lonesome vegan in the table. And it's a good chance indeed. They go, oh, okay, no, why can't you eat it? And I'm like, I can explain a little bit. But then, I was like, okay, that was good. But indeed, touching upon, okay, what's my personal boundary? I felt horrible. It was a chill, man. No one attacked me. No one said, oh, you're vegan. But then, I don't know, I came home and I was like, I couldn't sleep. I was just thinking about all these smells and all these plates of people chewing on this. I don't know. It's still very unsolved for me, so I was curious.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. I think there are misconceptions about the Liberation Pledge because I've heard this before that people.
Maybe you can tell also what it is, because I think not every.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the Liberation Pledge is actually a pledge that you take, that you negotiate non-vegan tables. So it doesn't mean that the people on the table are vegan, but that the food on the table is vegan. And it's actually to put boundaries for the animals, for yourself, and to also create a opportunity to educate people about veganism and the core of veganism. What was your question again?
I guess maybe it's a personal, but I wanna do it. I wanna get involved in this, in the spaces.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's the perfect target, but then I don't respect myself boundaries. Mental health.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I still am in plenty contact with non-vegans, even though I took the pledge. And
how do you manage that? How do you
yeah, so I work in a place that's a vegan kitchen, but there are only 2 vegans working in the kitchen, for instance. My family is not vegan. My family-in-law is not vegan. So there are plenty of opportunities. And actually, I feel that the Liberation Pledge is actually creating more opportunities to talk about it, instead of just, joining the table without saying anything and then biting myself because I see dead bodies. I create actually a space to tell them what I feel about it, and if they don't want to participate in that, that's fine. But then I'm also not participating. That's personal boundaries for all of us, I guess. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you think there's probably a correlation between your own abuse in your life and being aware of how animals feel, and I could deeply resonate with that as well. And do you see in your practice and with the people you interview, do you see a correlation there often as well, or is it not really a factor?
Yeah, I do see that. Yeah, I cannot go into depth in the personal cases, but I do see a lot of youth trauma, childhood trauma, from feeling machteloos, powerless, and then from that feeling that you know so well, you can relate to what the animals must feel. Yeah. So I do see I didn't investigate this scientifically, so no statistics, but it's something that I do observe. Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much for your talk. It was very enlightening. I know you have experience working with Anonymous for Voiceless. One of the policies they have is when you are in conversation with someone and they don't seem open, you are going to cut that conversation short.
Yes.
So I want to know, given your background in psychology and also your experience doing activism, what do you think are policies or ideas animal rights groups can implement to help their activists?
Oh, that's so beautiful question, and broad also, because I totally support this way of doing activism, because I do think that we should be very conscious with our own energy, because it's super valuable. So definitely, I do. Yeah. It's a very broad question. I would say, on the top of my mind now, I would say having support, someone that people can talk to. I did some confidential. I was a confidential advisor for Safe Movement and for Pink Politiek. I think it's very important to have a person that you can just talk to if you need to. So I think maybe that's a way to create safety. I also feel we can do a lot in briefings and debriefings. So in briefings, we can explain a little bit more about safety procedures, you know, in case someone gets like physically attacked, but also mentally. And at the debrief, if there's someone that wants to share, I think there's a lot of power in that, like just processing it right away after what happened. Could also help, maybe in the group or maybe one-on-one with the organizer or someone that's designated for that. And I do feel also that's also important to normalize what you feel. I think a lot of people feel that they need to continue or move on or, you know, like suck it up. And while I feel there can be more awareness for also difficult feelings. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for your question.
If there's a final short question, we would have time for that.
When can we taste your food?
I hope soon. Yeah.
So what would you recommend? So let's imagine people who do activism. What would you recommend they do when they get home after we all know shitty conversations that
Yeah. I think that's very personal. As I was also telling about the interviews that I did for with the activists, like some people said, I want to learn more about animal rights. I want to learn how to do these conversations. I need to dive into it. And some were like, okay, I need another hobby. I need to talk to my non-vegan friends now for a moment, or like do other stuff, get busy with Palestina or something else. Whatever is good for you. And I think that's very personal. And I think it's very important to think about that beforehand, so you know what to do when the moment is there. And you don't, you know, when the stress is high, it's very difficult to be creative. So it's important to know upfront that if I feel like this, that I'm gonna go paint, or I'm gonna talk to my friend, or I'm gonna sleep early, or maybe skip the next action, or I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Priya.